What's going on, guys? Lord Dan here. In this video I'm going to be talking about Griffon from Devil May Cry 1. This has been a passion project of mine, so I hope you enjoy. Cue the intro.
Let's rock, baby.
Griffon is a boss in the 2001 hit video game Devil May Cry, and like every other boss in the game, you fight him 3 times. Each fight getting progressively tougher until you eventually kill him in the final fight. A couple of days back, I refought him on Dante Must Die, which, if you're not aware, is the hardest difficulty in the game, and in this video, I'm going to talk about that fight. But first, a little more information on Griffon for those who may not have played this game. Griffon is a giant bird-like demon who, like Phantom, Nilo Angelo, and Nightmare, are tasked to kill Dante by the Dark Emperor Mundus, who was previously sealed away by Dante's father, Spada, Mundus's former right-hand man. Griffon has also appeared in Devil May Cry 2, where he formed part of the infamous demonic mess that is Argo Sax the Chaos. There's no reason why he appears as part of Argo Sax, because he wasn't a boss in Devil May Cry 2, but the developers just threw him in anyway. Griffon also appears in Devil May Cry 5 as one of 3 familiars summoned by V as a method of attack. I should note that it's definitely not the same Griffon, but I'm not going to talk about that one anymore due to potentially giving away Devil May Cry 5 spoilers. I think it's strange that the developers decided on the name Griffon despite looking nothing like a griffin, a part lion, part eagle hybrid creature of legend, when he actually appears to be based on the Thunderbird, which is a legendary creature generally identified within Native American culture said to control the upper world. The Stormbird from Horizon Zero Dawn also appears to pay homage to the Thunderbird, but I digress. As I mentioned before, you fight Griffon 3 times. 4 if you count being dragged into the underworld during the second Nightmare fight, but I don't. But I'm going to be focusing on the third and final fight. Up until this point, he hasn't exactly been a pushover, but in this final confrontation, he will put everything you've learned to the test. It's just the two of you in a big open arena with nothing to get in your way. He will be throwing everything he has at you, and you're expected to do the same. Griffon 3, as I'm going to refer to this battle, is not an easy fight by any means. He can be quite tricky on your first time through the game on normal difficulty, and he's definitely no slouch on Dante Must Die. He can kill you with just a few attacks, so precision when avoiding his attacks is a necessity. He will generally try to hit you from afar with his lightning attacks, but will occasionally charge at you. This happens more often once you knock him out the air and send him crashing into the sacrificial altar. So just before the fight begins, there's only one thing left to say.
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
So now let's talk about the actual battle. As you'll be able to see, at the start of the fight I use Ifrit and fully charge a meteor to hit him when he's like this. Because when he leans forward like that, you can actually hit 2 of his hitboxes, which sees him take a lot of damage, which is a great way to start off the fight. By doing that, I've taken off about 1/5 of his total health, and for phase 2 of the fight to begin, you need to drop him down to around 2/3, so I'm already at a great advantage. Following this, I tend to just shoot him with the grenade gun, apart from that cheeky inferno just before he flies up. A few shots later, and he comes crashing down, beginning phase 2. Once he gets up, shakes off his injury, it's go time. In this part of the fight, I switch back to Alastor and use round trip and the grenade gun exclusively. Doing this, I had a much easier time than I did the last time I fought him on Dante Must Die. I'm sure it's not a new strategy by any means, but I hadn't tried it before, and it worked really well. Another great strategy to use is the meteor attack, but my timing on that attack isn't great in phase 2, so I just stuck with the grenade gun and round trip. And that's all I do. With a wing down, Griffon only gets more aggressive. You have to dodge and weave in and out of his lightning attacks, choosing your moments to attack very carefully because you'll take a hefty amount of damage for each hit you take, like I do. I guess now is the time to mention that this isn't a no damage fight, it's just footage from my stream a couple of days back. I lost a good few times before I actually beat him. It took me a lot of patience and a lot of practice because he has an insane amount of health on Dante Must Die. And just to top things off, once you drop his health down to red, he gains even more defense, so it definitely is no time to get cocky. I know I've mentioned how difficult he can be. If you've played Devil May Cry 1, then you'll know firsthand. But I don't think he's the toughest boss in the game by a long shot. In fact, I wouldn't even put him in my top 3. In no particular order, my top 3 toughest bosses in Devil May Cry 1 are Nightmare 3, Nilo Angelo 3, and Mundus. I'm not sure who thought it'd be a good idea to turn phase 1 of the final boss into a rail shooter, but I'm not going to talk about that now. I'll save that for a future video. But back on subject. As I said earlier, I thought it was better to fight Griffon with ranged combat, but you can get up close and personal with him. Using Ifrit can work really well, especially if you use Inferno, which you saw me use on him earlier. The damage on it is really good, and you can actually use it a few times to knock him over and stun him to get a few extra hits in. But the drawback is that you must be in Devil Trigger to use it, and Inferno itself consumes 3 runes of Devil Trigger. I tried to do it that way, and it didn't really work out for me. That being said, I have seen it work for other people, but just not for me. But now, let's talk about his moves. He has a small repertoire of attacks, and I'm going to go through them one by one. You'll have seen him use them on me by now. So, a couple of the attack names I've taken straight from DMC5, the rest I've made up. See if you can guess which. First up is Blockade. This is the attack where he'll shoot a row of 5 or 6 vertical pillars of lightning at you. I find the easiest way to dodge this is to roll to the side, as you've already seen me do. If you're quick enough, you can get a shot off on him in between attacks, but I played it safe and chose to just avoid them. Next is the Charge and Beak Strike. He'll signal this by leaning forward and shrieking at you. He'll then run at you and try to hit you with his beak. This one is quite easy to avoid and punish. If you're far enough away, then you can just shoot him as he charges or even charge up a round trip. As he gets closer, I like to double jump out the way so I can gain a bit of distance and then counter with the devil triggered round trip and then a shot with the grenade gun. The third attack I'm going to talk about are the lightning pillars. Similar to Blockade, except the pillars aren't in a row, they're one in front of the other, if that makes sense. You'll know who's doing this as Griffon will raise his head to the sky and the screen will darken. He'll shoot one at you, then a second shortly after. He'll do this 3 times. After every second one, you can get a quick grenade shot off on him for a bit of extra damage. You'll want to dodge these lightning bolts quite late, because if you do it too early, you'll take damage like I do. There's a bit of a rhythm to it, but it's not too tough to pick up. As it comes, you'll want to roll, roll, shoot, wait for the lightning, roll, roll, shoot, wait for the lightning, roll, roll, shoot, and then you'll have time to throw a round trip at him, assuming you're doing the same as me. Next is the jump attack. Griffon will jump up into the air and use bolts of lightning to pull himself to the ground in your direction. This attack is easy to avoid, and it's basically free damage if you see him doing this. All you need to do is jump to the side and then counter with whatever attack you're comfortable with. For me, it's round trip, then a shot to the face with the grenade gun. Just watch out that you're not too close to him when he lands, otherwise you'll get hit by the wind. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it can throw you off. So last, but certainly not least, the double check. He'll signal this by jumping back and shooting a horizontal line of lightning at you, following it up with a V-shaped lightning bolt that closes inwards. The first line of lightning is usually what catches me out, but after that I tend to double jump to avoid the first V and then stick to the ground for the second. Rinse and repeat, as he tends to aim where you are rather than where you're going to be. If you're feeling risky, then you can get a shot in between each attack. So before I start waffling on or repeating myself, I think it's best to conclude this video by saying this. Love him or hate him, Griffon is definitely one of the more memorable bosses from Devil May Cry 1. I'd even say he's one of the most memorable bosses from the franchise. It's a tough fight for sure, but no part of it feels unfair. His attacks are well telegraphed and he won't kill you in 2 hits, but he will punish the impatient and the greedy. Up until this point, I'd always dreaded this fight. I definitely did when I beat Dante Must Die earlier this year for the first time, but when I fought him this time round, something was different. I wasn't getting annoyed at each loss, I was excited just to give it one more try. I enjoyed it so much it inspired me to make this video. I just had to talk about it, even if it does feel like yelling into the void. It feels strange to say that I'm having new experiences with an 18-year-old game, and it feels even stranger to say that as of right now, Griffon 3 has overtaken Nilo Angelo 3 as my favourite boss in the first Devil May Cry game. But here we are. As far as I'm concerned, Devil May Cry is the game that keeps on giving. I've beaten it 9 times this year alone after a break of about 5 years, and I've fallen back in love with it. But, as I've got nothing more left to say about Griffon, I'll leave with these final parting words. Rest in peace, little chicken. It's been a bash.